Oklahoma carried out the first execution of 2022 on January 27th, injecting Donald Grant with a 3-drug chemical cocktail whose constitutionality is the subject of a pending federal trial. Donald Grant was executed 20 years after he brutally killed 2 women during a Del City robbery. The day of his execution marks 20 years, 6 months, 9 days and just minutes since Brenda McAleer and Felicia Suzette Smith were taken from this world by Donald Grant. Grant killed Brenda McAleer, 29, and Felicia Suzette Smith, 43, so there would be no witnesses to his robbery at the La Quinta Inn in Del City in July 2001. His then-girlfriend used to work at the same premises. For reasons best known to Grant, he decided to rob the La Quinta Inn in Del City and brutally killing both women. The camera surveillance helped the police to identify Grant. In 2001, Donald Grant, then aged 25, robbed a hotel to steal bail money for his imprisoned girlfriend. During the robbery, he opened fire on 2 hotel employees. One died instantly, and the other Grant finished off with a knife, according to court documents. He confessed to committing the robbery to bail his girlfriend out of jail. He admitted he killed manager Brenda McAleer and front desk clerk Suzette Smith, so they couldn't identify him. McAleer, 29, was shot in the head. Smith, 43, was shot 3 times, cut repeatedly with a knife, bitten over the head and had her neck twisted. Donald Grant said he got $1,500 out of the robbery and paid $200 for the bond to get his girlfriend out of jail. She later testified against him, saying he acted proud over what he had done. He was sentenced to death in 2005. Since then, he has filed numerous appeals to have his sentence overturned, citing intellectual deficiencies in particular. In an online petition, his defenders claimed that he suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome and brain trauma caused by violent abuse in his childhood from his alcoholic father. A psychologist who examined Donald Grant in 2001 reported he lapses into paranoid ramblings regarding the president, CIA, FBI, Congress, and, most significantly when I saw him, the United Nations being of the devil and going against the 5%ers who are the true believers. A psychologist who examined him in 2002 reported he believed he would return to Oklahoma 16 years after his execution to initiate Armageddon. Donald Grant had been diagnosed multiple times as schizophrenic, and death penalty opponents said he should have been in a mental hospital, not prison. John Grant's execution was the state's first since problems with the state's lethal injection protocols in 2014 and 2015 led to a de facto moratorium. Richard Glossop was just hours away from being executed in September 2015 when prison officials realized they received the wrong lethal drug. It was later learned the same wrong drug had been used to execute an inmate in January 2015. The drug mix-ups followed a botched execution in April 2014 in which inmate Clayton Lockett struggled on a gurney before dying 43 minutes into his lethal injection, and after the state's prisons chief ordered executioners to stop. Grant was the first person executed in the U.S. this year and the third put to death in Oklahoma since the state resumed capital punishment after a 6-year pause in October. Grant and another death row inmate, Gilbert Postel, had asked a federal judge to grant them a temporary injunction that would delay their executions until a trial can be held over whether Oklahoma's 3-drug lethal injection method is constitutional. They had offered to be killed by firing squad as an alternative, arguing that it would be quicker and less painful. Grant and other death row inmates in Oklahoma, as well as across the country, have challenged the use of the sedative midazolam in their executions, arguing that the drug is not appropriate for lethal injections and noting its use in several problematic executions. In October, John Marion Grant heaved and vomited during his execution, causing members of the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board to question the execution process. However, the 2 executions since then, including Donald Grant's, were administered without issue. A trial on the matter is set to begin February 28th. But Grant's scheduled execution was Thursday the 27th of January 2022, and Postal's date with death is set for February 17, 2022. Grant's death marks the 1,541st execution in the U.S. since the resumption of capital punishment in 1976, according to the Death Penalty Information Center. Donald Anthony Grant, 46, was pronounced dead at 10:16 a.m. Connecticut on the 27th of January 2022. At the Oklahoma State Penitentiary, a state corrections spokesman announced. The execution began at 10:03 a.m., and Grant was declared unconscious at 10:08 a.m. before his death at 10:16 a.m., Corrections Department Director Scott Crow said. There were 18 witnesses, including news reporters, prosecutors, a police chief and loved ones of Grant and his victims. Grant's disjointed final words lasted 2 minutes before a prison staff member in the execution chamber stopped him and cut off the microphone. "I got this. This ain't nothing," Grant said. "I'm solid, son. No meds, no nothing. I'm solid." Grant kept speaking after the microphone was turned off, looking toward his family members sitting in the front row of the witness room. "I'm going to go to the universe, and then I'll be back," he said. "God is here. The true God." At one point, tears appeared to be rolling down his face. Even after Grant was told his 2 minutes to deliver his last words had ended and the microphone inside the execution chamber was turned off, Grant continued to speak to about 7 witnesses who attended the execution on his behalf. A few minutes later, Grant's eyelids began to droop and he appeared to be sleeping. After a doctor entered the room to conduct a consciousness check, rubbing his sternum and calling his name, Grant could be heard snoring as a prison official declared him unconscious at 10:09 p.m. He appeared to stop breathing about 2 minutes later. His breathing became hitched at 10:05 a.m., 2 minutes after the first drug, the sedative midazolam, was administered. He could be heard snoring loudly at 10:09 a.m. when the microphone was turned back on for the announcement that he was unconscious. His chest stopped moving at 10:10 a.m. The state's track record on executions will be of significance to an upcoming trial in federal court in Oklahoma City. More than 24 death row inmates are complaining the 3-drug procedure exposes them to an unconstitutional risk of severe pain and suffering. For his traditional last meal, Grant ordered sesame chicken, 6 egg rolls and shrimp fried rice. He also ordered a large apple fritter or 3 pints of strawberry ice cream if that dessert was not available. Thank you for watching Death Row.